Well, welcome everyone. Today we are talking about how to experience timelessness and ecstasy in Tantric intimacy. And this is really almost the foundation of what people expect out of Tantric intimacy. You know, if you go out into the world and you mention Tantra, people either haven't heard of it or they believe it's about sex, but they believe it's about a special kind of sex or a special kind of sexual experience. And this is really the point, that in intimacy, you can experience pure ecstasy and lose yourself in timelessness. And this is actually, ironically, what people understand, but to actually also know that we release all known and normal kinds of pleasure that we imagine. We actually go beyond them. It isn't just about, oh, that's really stimulating, or oh, I really want to have that orgasm, or I want to ejaculate, or something like that. If the goal is actually ecstasy and timelessness, then the goal isn't ejaculation or a clitoral orgasm or anything like that. And not to say that there's anything wrong with those things, and it's not to say that if you practice tantric intimacy, tantric living, that you don't do these things. There's no such rule. But today we're going to talk about almost how tantric intimacy, sexual intimacy, can be a conduit to experience timelessness. And why do we do that? Why do we want to do that? Is because that's our true nature. Our true nature is this eternal being, one with all. We hear about this all the time in spiritual communities, that we are one with God, all that. And it's like, yeah, I still have to pay rent. You know, I don't really know what you're talking about. Or I kind of know what you're talking about, but how does that fit into life? And a lot of the times in our lives, we don't feel like that at all. We don't feel tantric. We have fears, we have worries, we have old grudges, we have anger, we have all kinds of things that keep us very rooted in the very physical, very human world. And so it's an interesting thing to imagine making love. And it's almost like you get to not just watch a movie, but you get to experience the truth of who we are. And then what happens is that starts to blend into the rest of our life. It's almost like imagining you've lived in a world where people were unkind all the time. Maybe you grew up in a family where there was a lot of anxiety and a lot of concern and a lot of fear for your own safety, and justifiably. So you live your life kind of in this way of not trusting people and holding your cards close and not letting your guard down and not really connecting with people. And then all of a sudden you meet someone who's a genuinely kind person, who actually doesn't want anything from you, and they just do nice things. And you hang out with them long enough, and all of a sudden you realize, wow, they're a really nice person. And you drop your guards, and you have a heartfelt conversation, and you connect with that deep, vulnerable part of you that is really you. And at the end of the conversation, you feel different. You're like, wait a minute, the world just opened up a little bit. Suddenly, life seems different. And that's the point here. That what if through sexual intimacy, and obviously through life too, but today we're talking about sexual intimacy. What if the experiences you had making love actually shifted how you saw the world around you? That suddenly you realized this really is an infinite place. This really is an infinite playground. I just have to play. Right? So that's why we're doing this. So there's a couple big places we need to go today to talk about this. And the first is I want to talk about the idea of ecstasy. What does this mean? And it's so funny. Every time I say the word ecstasy, I think of the drug, which has nothing to do with this at all. But ecstasy, to stand outside our normal life, to release our fears, to release our attachments to what's going to happen next, to my successes, to my failures, to, I don't know, what my body looks like, whether I have a relationship or not, whatever, all those things. If I could just release all that, how would I feel? So I want to read you a story. And this is a story that's actually in two of my books. It's in this book, What If You Could Skip the Cancer? And it's also in this book, Tantric Intimacy, which I highly recommend if Tantra is new to you. And this is a story from about, 29 years ago, because I was pregnant with my son during this story, and he is almost 29 years old. And I was about that pregnant. Many years ago, I found complete bliss flying through the air as my car was about to crash. I was 24 years old, 6 months pregnant, and on my way to work. I lived out in the country and the roads were icy. I was driving along, and suddenly my car started spinning on the ice. I realized I was completely out of control, and I was heading towards a 9-foot ditch. As my car spun in circles on the icy road, I thought I was going to die. I put one hand on my baby and one hand on the steering wheel, closed my eyes, and prepared for the crash. I should have been terrified, but I felt quite the opposite. Time slowed down. I felt a kind of love like never before. The car was flying through the air in slow motion, and I was completely at peace. There was no stress or tension in my body. I was totally happy and blissful. I will never forget that feeling. After what seemed like hours, the car hit the ground. The windshield smashed. The entire front end of the car was caved in. Yet there I was, and my baby and I were just fine. I had no idea what I experienced until the next day when I was listening to the radio, and strangely, they were talking about the 23rd Psalm in the Bible. This was strange because it wasn't a religious radio station. What beautiful serendipity. And here's what they were reading. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I realize that Christianity is not everybody's bag, but this is the way the story went. The man being interviewed spoke about how when we release control to God, we experience peace and tranquility like never before. This was what I experienced. I felt I had the whole world at my fingertips. I felt love and joy and bliss. There was no fear, no worries, even in the possibility of dying. I was lying beside still waters, totally at peace. So imagine for a moment that you replace whatever, that's a Christian story, a Christian story from the Bible, passage. But imagine you replace that with whatever it is you understand the universe to be. And this is really important because as much as today's talk is about tantric intimacy and sex, Tantra is a spiritual practice. To remove whatever you believe spirituality, God, conscious, whatever that is for you, to remove that from your hopes about this, it's no longer Tantra. It's something else which might be very interesting and helpful, but it isn't Tantra. And you won't necessarily get to the same place in all likelihood. So, in your mind, in your life, imagine that passage, replacing it with whatever you understand the universe to be. Imagine the passages that when I release control, I will feel peace. When I trust that the universe has my back, I'll be able to effortlessly flow through my choices. When I believe that I am here with great purpose and I can let go of having to control everything, a table, a feast will be put before me. Imagine. So now imagine this in lovemaking. Imagine being able to let go of control, to let go of our attachments to the world. And by the way, that doesn't mean letting go of who we love and all that. It just means letting go of our attachment to how things turn out, letting go of our attachment to things changing. Imagine that in making love. You just let it all go. How do you feel? How do you feel when you no longer have any worries, concerns? You feel bliss. You feel absolute bliss. And it's a very interesting thing because very often when people want to study Tantra, they want to learn specific tricks. They want to know a tantric position. There are no tantric positions. If you can't experience this in any position, in, out, heterosexual, same-sex, whatever, then it isn't Tantra. And you're just not there. So it's just an interesting thing to imagine. We have to first believe that this is possible. And if for whatever reason we believe that there is no way I could ever let go of control, that's important to know. It doesn't mean you still can't practice tantric intimacy. You sure you can. You just have to know that I have a limitation here. Like you don't want to be in denial about it or ignore it. You just want to be clear that as I'm doing these things, which we're going to talk about, I may have trouble letting go. I may have trouble being present for this. Okay, that's on the table. Good to know, right? So the way we're going to talk about this, and we've talked about this in some of our previous talks, in Shaivism, specifically Kashmir Shaivism is what we're going to talk about, the Tantric school. They talk about, imagine, you have the Shiva Shakti oneness. And that can be anything from all religions, whatever that oneness is that begins all things. And in order to create duality, in order for us to have a human experience, they created something called Maya. Maya is this world, right? In this world, we're going to pretend we're human, even though we are divine, even though we are Shiva Shakti incarnate. Maya is our playground. So, in order for us divine beings to hang out here, we need to not have all of our divine qualities. So they have 5 fetters, kanchikas, limitations that are imposed upon us or we get to play within in order to be human. Because we can't be walking around omnipotent, omniscient, because then we're just being God, or whatever you understand that to be. So how do we be human? Well, here are the 5. 1, we live in a time continuum, right? Where there's a past and a future and a present. This is not in divinity. This is not in oneness. That's here in Maya. And it's all good unless we get too attached to it. Space, causality, that when I do this, this happens. And then I do this and that happens, right? So this is our time-space continuum that we're playing it here in Maya, right? Well, we obviously can't be able to do everything like a divine being could, so we have to have limited abilities. We have to have limited knowledge. We can't know everything, or else what's the point of becoming human? We may as well just stay being a god. And with all of this in there, we have to feel a little incomplete, a little imperfect. And this creates desire. This, so we have all of this, we lack the ability to do everything, but we can do some things. We lack the ability to know everything, but we can know some things. We have to live in this time-space continuum. But now what? Well, desire makes us go out and have adventures. Desire makes us want to procreate. Desire makes us want to have sex without procreating. Desire makes us want to eat food and climb that mountain and swim that lake. And that's what desire makes us want to do. So these aren't necessarily negative. But imagine a continuum. Imagine on this side of the continuum, we are completely lost in those limitations. We've long forgotten our divinity on this end of the continuum. When we're way over here on the divine end, we know it's just a game. It doesn't mean it isn't important. And it doesn't mean that we don't care about people and we don't care about the environment. We don't care about things. It just means we also remember who we are. But way over here on this end of the continuum, we may have really forgotten a lot of things. Now, to realize that in many, many, many cultures, especially in India, definitely in North America and Europe, one of the weirdest parts about many religions and the social structures is that about 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, we were taught that we weren't divine. In fact, we were quite sinful, quite lowly, filled with dirty desires, desires for money and power and sex. We were just lowly humans. But those people over there, the priests, the gurus, those people over there, they're about the religion. They're close to God, not you. You're really not more than an animal, really. So now let's take our continuum. What does that do? It cuts us off from our divinity. And what does it do? We get lost in the physicality of life. We get lost in the limitations because we're not allowed to even talk about God. God has become something outside of us. God has become something over there. And we have to do things to make ourselves worthy. But the system's set up that no matter what you do, you'll never be worthy. There's no coming out of it until you die. This is what most of us were taught. So now all of a sudden, we get completely lost in the limitations. So then what does life look like? Our imperfections and our incompleteness tortures us. Lack of self-worth. We're never good enough. Our inability to know things makes us feel stupid, unworthy, unintelligent. Our inability to do things makes us feel powerless, that we are victims of this world. Time, never enough time. And I'm riddled with the guilt from my past terrified about the future. Causality, oh, the things I wish I'd never done. And what if I do this choice and there's this effect in the future, right? This is our world. When we are cut off from our actual divinity within us, there are no priests and gurus who can connect us with that. This is tantric teaching. This is who we are, right? All right, so let's talk about sex. How does this apply to sex? Well, first let's imagine the whole idea of being incomplete. So here you are, you're lying with someone, a partner, someone new, whoever, and you are filled with the feeling of being imperfect, of being incomplete. Well, what kind of sex are you going to have? You know, are you terrified for them to touch you because what if they don't like you? What if, because you don't like you, they're going to notice that you're not perfect. They're going to notice that there's things missing and you're not awesome. So how relaxed can you be? How can you even feel what's going on? Right? We're going to be constantly terrified that they're going to find out that we're imperfect and we're not complete. So we hold our guards up and I don't know, maybe we have a drink or so, or we smoke something, or we take something to kind of try to alleviate our horrible lack of self-worth, right? So the tantric side of this is, well, you're meant to be imperfect. You're meant to be incomplete. That's the joy of living. We're here to learn. We're here to expand. We're here to actually look inside of us and find the little seeds and expand them. That's the point. That's the fun. That's the excitement. You know, it's funny, when I was preparing for this, I was thinking about that phrase, know thyself, that I believe is inscribed above. I don't know whether it's in Delphi. I don't know, somewhere important. This is inscribed, know thyself. Know thyself. Isn't that interesting? Don't just know yourself. Don't know your ego. Know thyself. Know that you are complete. You are this infinite being. And now you're going to play. You've been given this interesting incarnation, and the joy of life is going inside and expanding to your full container. Your container's already there. This is just the game, right? It's like, I have a thing about jigsaw puzzles. I love jigsaw puzzles. Well, the box is there. The pieces are all separated. They're all apart. There's a thrill in putting them together, right? You don't hate the jigsaw puzzle because it's all in pieces. That's the fun. So now imagine making love, knowing thyself, right? Now suddenly, whoever I am is very interesting. Long, short, tall, fat, old, young, educated, uneducated, experienced, inexperienced, who cares? This is my starting point. I expand from here. How much fun is that? Right? Now suddenly, what does sexual intimacy look like? We're exploring ourselves. We're seeing, what does this feel like? What does that feel like? What am I inspired to do? Who am I really? How exciting is that? So now imagine causality, the belief that I do this, it causes this, causes this. And again, this is how life is. I'm not saying this doesn't exist. But when we think that in the bedroom, now we're looking for tricks. We're looking for skills in being a good lover. I need to know that when I do this, it's going to cause this and it's going to cause this. And I always think about, I remember one time I was with a man, and he was really wanting to explore Tantra, and he knew that I taught Tantra and all this, and he really wanted to impress me in the bedroom. And he had said to me, he goes, well, when we get in there, my goal is I'm going to make sure that you orgasm 6 times before I even penetrate you. I just looked at him. I was like, what? Like, I'm not a toy. I'm not a toy that you can just push my buttons and this is what happens. And that's 100% for you. No matter how much you think that that's for me, that is just you wanting to prove to yourself that you're capable of doing something. It has nothing to do with me. But this is when we're attached to causality. All we want to do, we want to be a great lover. We want to know that when I do this, you swoon, right? And when we become super attached to that, we will never release into timelessness and ecstasy because we are gripping so hard to our skills. Our brains are making love, not our bodies. So imagine instead, there's no such thing. You're lying naked with this wonderful person. And you have no idea what's going to happen. You may touch them this way, and you have no idea which direction it's going to go. It could go this way, it could go 100 ways. It was funny. I remember making love with someone once, and it was very, very sweet, very loving. And there was a real ability to completely release for me. Like there was something about his presence that just excited me so much. It's like I wanted to release everything so that my nerves could feel every single thing going on. And it was so funny because he was on top and I was so relaxed. I was just so completely relaxed. My body was humming. This is the crazy thing about relaxation. You actually go into an ecstatic state just by relaxing. Like, I mean, totally relaxing. And so, of course, he was trying to insert himself into me, but he would just touch me, like just the tip would touch me, and I would like just go into this like this crazy orgasmic state. And of course, as soon as he would touch that, it would arouse him so much that he couldn't control his ejaculation. So he would stop. And we made love like this for a long time. He was barely inside of me. He wasn't inside of me. He was just touching me. But the energy was so high, and we hadn't done anything special. Like to really realize we hadn't done some bizarre ritual or anything like that. And this was very new. It wasn't something we'd done before and we'd been repeating it because we're like Tantra masters or something. Truthfully, the beginning of the lovemaking began as a really heart-opened conversation about difficult things. We didn't even think we were going to be making love. We were actually just having a conversation about some very emotional things. And then it turned into cuddling. And I don't know what happened. I don't know whether he said something or I said something. And all of a sudden, there was this. It was like we were flooded with gratitude for each other, like flooded with gratitude. And my whole body just felt this beautiful love and gratitude, and him too. And so we were so sensitive, physically, emotionally, spiritually, that just the very touch of the genitals sent us to Alpha Centauri. And so it's just an interesting thing. Like, we have no idea what will cause one thing to happen or the next thing to happen. I couldn't repeat that. That was a very unique path to that particular point. And I was laughing about it after, thinking, wow, in the land of absolute proof that size doesn't matter. I mean, it may matter if you're having procreative style sex where it's the battering ram that's the point, right? But in real tantric intimacy, when you want to experience ecstasy, has nothing to do with anything. You know, you have this 99% of the rest of your body and maybe more. That's the point, you know. So completely releasing causality. You may do something, and we have no idea where it's going to go. And there's real excitement in that. So then how about this lack of knowledge? They call it avidya. What do we do with that fetter? Well, in regular sex, if we're very lost over here in the physical world, we're terrified that we don't know what to do. How do I know how to please them? How do I know what pleases me? I don't even know what I want, let alone what do they want. And then we're all in our heads, right? So for over in the tantric world, what is the truth? Well, of course you don't know what they want. They're a brand new person. You've never even met this person before, even if you've made love with them thousands of times. They are a brand new human. They have had other experiences and aha moments and realizations. If they're a cycling woman, they are chemically different than the last time you were with them. Of course you don't know what they want today. So this is why we practice our intuition. We meditate. We learn to be centered so we can hear guidance. And then we're just light about it. We allow it to be fun. This is a friend. This is a good friend. And if you're making love with someone who you feel really intimidated by, or you feel like you have to perform for them, question this. Seriously question this. Why do you feel like you have to perform for them? In my book, Tantric Intimacy, the first entire section is all about love. And it's redefining love, because this is really important. Because we think that we can just dive in with all these great skills and meditate and do all these things, and we're going to have some epic tantric experience. But the bottom line is, this is a tree, beautiful drawing that one of my daughter's friends drew for me. And at the bottom is agape. And this is respect, kindness, right? This is where we respect each other's journey, right? We recognize you as a fellow human just trying to figure things out. The trunk there is philia. This is trust. Philia means brotherhood. This is where we're friends. We're confidants. We share our deepest desires with each other. We share our deepest hopes and dreams and fears, and we trust this person. And on top of that is eros, passionate love. If you're making love with someone and you don't have agape and philia, they aren't a good friend, they aren't kind, respectful, you're not going to experience tantric intimacy with them. And we have to ask ourselves why we're doing it, right? So now imagine instead you do have all of this with this person. They are your most intimate other. So we just play. We don't know what the other person wants today. Well, we can maybe communicate. Would you like this? Would you like a back rub? Would it be okay if I touched you here? Yes or no? No, maybe this, maybe that. And we play. We just are light about it. If sex is really a great big hairy deal, we have to question what we're doing. We are made for this. We are designed to do this, you know? So we just have to really first make sure we're in bed with the right person. And maybe we're with someone we want to be with, but maybe we need to heal some things so that we have that love. Then there's the whole limited skills, our limited ability, our limited power. Well, the reality is we have all the power we need. The bodies, like I said, are made to make love. Very long, he used to teach that just leave the brains out of the bedroom and let the bodies make love themselves. Don't even worry about it. And the crazy thing is, one of the ways that we transcend these fetters is knowing that we have full access to anything we'd ever want at any time. Just like, if you've seen The Matrix, which is really a documentary of being human, of our human abilities and how to be actually the cosmic beings that we are. These guys knew that all they had to do, there's this great scene where Trinity needs to be able to fly a helicopter. And Neo says, "Do you know how to fly that thing?" She says, "Hold on a minute." She calls up to Tank, "I need the program to fly this helicopter." And instantly it downloads into her and she can fly the helicopter. That's us. We aren't limited in knowledge or power. We just have to ask and we'll be able to do it. And it may not be that instant. Maybe we ask and all of a sudden a course appears at the local YMCA and we go and take it and it begins a journey. Because we are living in time and it's okay to learn things over time. But when you're making love, all you have to do is ask, what do I do next? Not necessarily to the person, but within. You could ask the person, but mostly within. And then follow however your intuition comes. Maybe it comes, for me, I'm very visual. Like all of a sudden I'll see us in a different position. Or all of a sudden I'll see myself doing something. And I just do it. I don't question it. I just do it. I don't think about it. I don't wonder about it. I just do it. And what that does is it creates this really interesting passion. The idea comes, you do it. And another one comes and you do it. And there's no break. And when you're doing something and there's no break and you just go and you go and you go and you go and you go. It's kind of like, you ever go to a dance and the music is awesome and you're on the dance floor and you're just dancing and dancing and dancing. And then the DJ puts on the next song and it's awesome and you're dancing and dancing and dancing. And the next song comes on and it's awesome and you're dancing and dancing and dancing. And now you've lost yourself in the music. You've lost it. But then what if the DJ puts on a song that's not great? And you kind of stand on the dance floor going, So you go sit down and you lose the momentum. You're kind of hoping for a good song to come on. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But it's not the same. That's like this. To allow yourself the momentum of trusting your intuition and just flowing with it. That's where the wave starts. That's where it becomes wild. That's where you get to enter that flow state, right? And so the final limitation is time. What if we are caught in our little world over here and all we can think about is all of our past experiences where it didn't work out, or maybe they did work out and we want to repeat them, and we're obsessed with whatever happened in the past? Or maybe we're worried about what happens if they don't like this, or what if I'm not pleasing to them, or what if this, or what if I don't have an orgasm, or what if I can't get an erection, or what if I come too soon, or what if we don't hit that tantric state? Like, how can you possibly make love thinking all these things, right? So instead, we're just here. So whatever you're doing, you just focus on what you're doing. And this is one of the best reasons to meditate and actually stay centered. And if thoughts come up, you just say, no. There's a great meditation called Neti Neti. And that's the meditation. You don't let the thoughts flow through. You just sit and you go, no. You don't even entertain them. And you just only allow yourself to be present. But this is a real discipline. And I highly recommend trying it all day long. That no matter what you're doing all day long, only be where you are. If you're driving the car, only drive the car. If you're washing the dishes, only wash the dishes. And if you are accustomed to always having your mind wandering, doing other things, you will do it in sex also. It's you. Just because you're having sex doesn't make it different, right? We have to actually discipline ourselves. We have to learn how to be present all the time. So, how do we summarize all that into a bullet list of how to experience timelessness and ecstasy and tantric intimacy? Well, the first thing is you can't plan it. You can't make it happen. You can't even have the goal necessarily of having it happen. You just have to be with whatever is today. Your tantric intimacy with your lover today could be crying and holding each other close. Today might feel like monkey sex, just giving her for all your worth and having crazy procreative sex and procreative style sex. Because maybe that's what you guys need. Maybe that's what your relationship needs. Maybe it's mostly cuddling, or maybe it's deep intimacy. It's so important to flow with what is. It's kind of like, surfers out on the ocean. They can only ride the waves that are there. They can't make them up. And it's the same here. When you come together with someone, you have to read what is and flow there. There's absolute ecstasy and stillness, right? So it's just important to just be with wherever you are. Then you have to ask yourself, why are you making love today? What is your why? If your why is to blow off steam, then know that. If your why is to connect deeply with your partner, then know that. If your why is to experience something you've never experienced before, which is ecstasy, because it's always different, then that's what it is. It's kind of like imagine you want to paint. So you're sitting there, you've got all your paints and you've got your easel. Are you painting something that you want to make money from? Because you're going to paint a certain way. Do you want to paint because you want to explore different colors? Then you're going to paint a certain way. Do you want to express your emotions? And painting is going to be that way. You're going to paint a certain way. I talked about jigsaw puzzling because I'm a jigsaw puzzler. Well, we've discovered that there are competitions that you can do. Speed puzzling, right? Well, if we sit down to train for a speed puzzling competition, we're going to puzzle in a very specific way. But if we sit down and our goal is total relaxation and chit chat and hanging out and drinking hot chocolate, then we're going to puzzle in a very particular way. So it's just important to be aware of your why. Why have you laid down with this person in this moment? It's very important to slow down. Sometimes we feel like sex needs to be frenetic and passionate and all that, and it can be. But first, we have to slow down. We have to release ourselves from the speed of the world and our mind and really be present with the other person. And then crazy inspiration will come. We need to actually discipline ourselves. And when I say discipline, I don't mean punish. I mean, discipline comes from the word disciple. It means to study something. It means to expand in something. So when I say discipline ourselves to be present, it means practice this over and over again. We also have to discipline ourselves to actually feel. And what this means is, let's say your partner touches you Feel it. Don't think about what you're going to do next. Don't plan what you're going to do. Just don't think. Quiet your mind, be present, and feel what they're doing. Because what happens is these are electrical, magical digits. And when we are touched, that energy goes into our system and sends little all the way through our body if we're paying attention. This engages our entire being. It engages our nervous system. It engages our body. When it engages our nervous system, that means it engages our mind, but not in a chewing, strange, calculating way. It calms our mind and brings us into this moment. So if all we do is feel what's happening, we will be able to relax our mind. And what happens when we relax our mind? We start to head into that beautiful, relaxed, ecstatic state. And then anything's possible there. And the last thing I want to mention is we have to focus. We have to allow all of our thoughts to only be here now. And this is really interesting. Some people believe that Patanjali, who wrote the Patanjali Sutras that we study in yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga, that he was predominantly a yogi, because people often ask, what's the difference between Tantra and yoga? But what's interesting is some say that Patanjali was actually a Tantric, because the 8 limbs of yoga actually lead us to Tantric ecstasy. And for example, the last 8 limbs, the first is dharana, which is focus, single-pointed concentration. So if you are making love, only make love. If you are the one touching, touch. If you're the one receiving, receive. 100% focus. Because the next step after this 100% focus is dhyana, which is absorption. And this is what happens when you fully receive touch. You become absorbed in the touch. You lose yourself in the touch. And when you can lose yourself in anything you're doing, this leads to samadhi, bliss, nirvana. Right? So this 100% focus is so necessary. And again, we need to practice it all day long. Whatever you're doing, only do that. And if you're a multitasker in life, you will multitask in the bedroom. You'll be like, okay, I'm feeling this, yeah, but I'm also going to do this. And then I'm thinking about this. And we think this works. So it's just something to think about. Really to focus and really just play and let go. Well, thank you guys so much for being here today. If you're interested in learning more, definitely check out my website, katrinaboss.ca. Join my email list, find out about upcoming trainings. And if you're interested in Tantra and this, definitely check out these 2 books. These are really the core that will be very awesome and helpful. And here on YouTube, there's all kinds of great talks about this in our Tantra Talks series, podcasts that you can watch. Super fun. Well, thanks everybody. And thank you guys so much for being here, all my friends. And we will be back on Insight Timer next Wednesday to have talks there. So thanks, guys. And if you're new and you've never gone to Insight Timer is an amazing app. It's free. And I teach live on it Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So definitely check that out too. Awesome, guys. We'll see you later. Have a great day.